Okay, so today we're in Darlington with Tom Wilson. Thanks very much, Tom.
Hi, Simon.
For agreeing to invite me up to your house. Well, let's get into it first of all. So can you tell us what your business Racing Squared does?
So the business Racing Squared, so what we do is we offer analysis or analytics services to partners all over the world for bloodstock sales. To unpackage it a little bit, we've got two main offerings or two main products. So the first is what I call pedigree modelling. So we use a lot of pedigree, sale and consignor data to produce expected ratings for horses at sales and the sales catalogues. Second is what you've probably seen a little bit on Twitter, hopefully, which is biomechanical evaluations, which is really then using computer programs and software to evaluate the movement of horses, and then from that to derive a expected performance level for those horses as well.
Yeah, no, biomechanics is fairly new to me. As a previous interviewee mentioned it to me a couple of years ago. So when you started this, was there already like a database and a program which you've sort of got, or did you have to develop it?
Maybe I explain the history a little bit because it ties in kind of the answer to that question. So I started doing kind of this pedigree analysis probably in about mid to early 2021. So it was actually a lockdown project, and started doing quite a lot of coding in lockdown, learning different programming languages like R and Python. And for the yearling sales last year, I was doing this first kind of component, which was pedigree modelling and using pedigree data from results going all the way back to 2008 actually, to then predict the ability of yearlings that were consigned in catalogues and that would kind of hit the track in the following year. What I'd noticed in doing that, and doing that with a couple of people that we were working with, is that we were missing a little bit of the physical side. So it's, in some ways, it's quite easy to tell a good pedigree because it's all there on the page. It's there in the sales catalogue, and you can tell the kind of yearling comes from a strong sire, comes from a dam that was either a good racetrack performer or good producer of progeny. And what we were missing a little bit was the physical side. So the biomechanic analysis is an attempt to kind of marry together a physical evaluation of the movement of horses, and in this case yearlings, to also the traditional practice of kind of pedigree analysis, albeit that I do that slightly differently because I'm using certain analytical and data science orientated techniques to perform that analysis. And if I was to summarize what biomechanics is, I mean, it's really the study of movement, or it's the study of motion. And that's what we're trying to evaluate when we're looking at yearlings, is how well do they move? What is the relationship between key body parts, the structural composition of the horse, and how they walk in the context of a yearling sale, or how they breeze in the context of a breeze up sale, and almost use a scientific approach to put a number on what has historically been an art form in racing. So people inherently look, kind of good judges of horses look at a horse and will qualify it as a good walker or a bad walker. Here we just try and use computer software and coding to kind of put a performance figure against that, and to then kind of catalogue and database it from an analytical perspective.
Okay, that's interesting. So have you found that those with a good eye still go for the horses that you've spotted on your biomechanics?
Yeah, I think it gives you comfort when you've got someone who's a good human judge, and then you've got a computer program, and when the opinions converge, it gives you a level of confidence, say in the prediction or in the evaluation. What I use at the sales, and it's a little bit inspired by how some betting syndicates work. So I don't know, kind of Benham or Bloom or Gelco or Dr. Nick, or kind of the big betting syndicates in the world. What you would typically do, as I understand it, you would have your kind of computer team or your computer modelling team, and they would create a baseline set of probabilities for a horse race, for a football match. But then what you'd also do is you'd then marry that together with different disciplines. So in horse racing, you might also then have the form team, or you might have the speed figures team, or you might have the physical team. And then what you do is you uplift or you downgrade your probabilities also based on that human assessment. So we kind of try to bring both together. That is actually the methodology that we deploy at the sales. So it's part computer, part human, But to answer your question, when the two things converge, that's normally a good indication of a good horse.
Yeah, and as a thing, I mean, how long has biomechanics been about?
As a study, I mean, it's a concept that's prevalent across all of physics and is probably kind of adopted in certain other sports a little bit more than racing. I mean, cycling uses biomechanics and kinematics. You might have also seen me talking about quite a lot to evaluate the performance of cyclists or the performance potential of cyclists. I would say, I mean, there's a couple of leading proponents of it in the horse racing game that I'm aware of. I think in one of your previous interviews, Jamie Piggott mentions it.
He was the one that first mentioned it to me.
So Jamie Piggott, it was a great interview, bloodstock agent, and I think they partner with a team or a company that does a biomechanics service out of South Africa, I think, and they've been doing that a couple of years. What introduced me to it was actually a guy called Byron Rogers. Now, Byron is the leading expert in this topic in horse racing globally. I would be a fast follower or early adopter of those type of things, but like Byron's the man basically. He runs the company Performance Genetics. So they do a lot of biomechanic analysis, genomic profiling of horses, both from a kind of a mating evaluation perspective and also then from a sales perspective. But I actually met Byron probably this time last year and showed him my pedigree stuff. And then he kind of put me on, oh, well, if you want to try and marry up the physical side as well, this is the sort of stuff that you could be looking at. So kind of a chance, well, not a chance meeting, but a quick meeting with Byron at Doncaster, actually. We were we're next to the racecourse in Doncaster, and that kind of sparked this new venture, and I then set about 6 months building a database of kind of historic videos of yearlings, breeds of horses, and then building a algorithm that could compare performance across them.
Okay, and it's Kinematics, is that
Kinematics.
Kinematics.
Yeah,
I was waiting for you to say it again. I knew I'd get it wrong. In my question, I've got a big long, but you can explain to us what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar discipline as biomechanics. It's basically the study of motion of objects or specific body parts. So maybe to unpackage it a little bit for horses. So what we do is when we evaluate a yearling at the sales, I mean, we take a video of the yearling, and that can be a video from the sales ground or a video from the sales catalogue. I then run it through some software. It's actually some open source software called Deep Lab Cut, which was developed by a couple of professors. I think it's a husband and wife team in the US. Actually to study like the movement of mice and stuff like that. So it's basically motion tracking. So, and you get this quite a lot in kind of computer vision and machine learning at the moment. It's tracking motion of objects through videos, be it humans, be it animals. But they were using it on like mice in a laboratory setting. And again, Byron put me onto this, but almost the same code set. And I mean, you have to adapt the code quite a bit and you have to train a new model. But again, you're just teaching the code to recognize certain body parts as they move through a video. And then kind of what I take off that, and this is then the kinematic part, we take different measurements of the horse like as they're moving. So I take like the angles of the joints. So we're looking at like the angle of the kind of joint between the hock and the fetlock and the fetlock and the foot. We're capturing data on the trajectory of those joints, so how they move across the video. We're also capturing some metrics on velocity and acceleration of the joints, so how fast, I don't know, does the knee or the hock move as the horse strides out, that type of stuff. So kinematics is kind of capturing numbers and creating metrics based on the motion or the movement of an individual object. And that's kind of what we do.
So is there in the computer system, a perfect horse that you're going to score points out of 10 to get to? Would it sort of come up bingo if there's one that's like a 99.9?
Yeah. So what we do is, I mean, and these things are not without error. Like all models are approximations of reality. So I will not sit here and pretend that, hey, we've got an algorithm, it finds you all of the elite horses, like, and we can talk about the performance level later on. What you do in kind of machine learning when it comes to images and videos, this is an oversimplistic example, but what you would normally do is train an algorithm. You'd give it like 100 pictures of a cat and 100 pictures of a dog, and you'd train it to predict what a cat looks like and what a dog looks like. So what we've done is we've taken around 5,000 videos of horses walking and moving at the yearling sales since 2018, and then trained it on what elite horses look like and how elite horses move versus how poor horses look like and how poor horses move. And the way I categorize that is I take horses that achieved an official rating or Racing Post rating of above 90 into the elite bracket, and anything that achieved a rating of below 60, so 60 and below, goes in the poor bracket. And we train the model to then look at new videos as they come in and basically categorize them in one of those two buckets. And what it does is it kind of derives a percentage probability. It gives you a percentage prediction that a horse is either in the elite bucket or the poor bucket, basically. So you get like a 90% chance that this horse that you're looking at through this video that you've ran through the software is an elite horse. And you can never guarantee 90%, but that's at least the categorization and classification algorithm that we use. From that, what I do is I then derive an expected official rating. So based on those probabilities, we place it on a scale between 50 and I normally use 115, because when you get into like above 120, they're the real champions, but they're so rare, they're complete outliers. And based on those probabilities, we put it on that scale and say, well, is that then a 90 horse, 100 horse, 70 horse, etc., etc.
Have you been able to trial it on historical video, for example, Nijinsky or Franco, and see how they came out?
I've not done it on like some of those famous ones. I've only done it on horses where we've got sales videos since 2018. So what I rely on is, you need the video of the horse walking, and it's probably COVID that accelerated it a little bit. Like, it wasn't really that kind of widespread adopted as a practice. But obviously then people not being able to go to the sales accelerated adoption of technology. But probably back to 2018. So our database goes back to 2018, and we have pretty much all horses that have had videos that have been through yearling sales globally since then, catalogued there. And yeah, then we look at some of the more famous ones, like, I don't know, Native Trail scored really well on kind of breeze up biomechanics, and then obviously it was a kind of an elite horse that came out of the breeze ups, and some other famous ones. One from the breeze ups this year who's done very well, and there's a couple actually, but would be Marshman. And now I wasn't involved in that purchase whatsoever. That's Nick Bradley, and that's entirely Nick Bradley, and Nick Bradley is a fantastic judge of horses. But probably to your earlier question, when you see someone who's a great human judge, and then you have a bit of computer software or an algorithm that agrees, that's probably a good indication that it's a good horse. But that also rated Marshman very highly when I go back and retrospectively look at the results there. And I think he's now favourite for the Middle Park after Noble Styles not going. So hopefully he does well.
I suppose in an ideal world, you'd like to be able to jump forward 10 years with 10 years worth of data.
Yeah.
And then you'd be much more powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of the only thing you can do at the moment. I try and publish as much as possible, like on Twitter and like other platforms, and it probably drives people mad, like what the results are or what the projections are. But the only way to do it, or the only way to truly prove the concept, is to like publish the data and then see how it gets on. So I've got all the back testing data in the world going back 4 years, but people want to see it working in practice, and it's also why we've bought a couple of yearlings this year to try it out, skin in the game, and live by what we preach a little bit.